Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Positive Success Show. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Karine Rayson, and she is a crew coach, a leadership coach, a human behaviorist, a counselor, anything and everything you want her to be. She is that cool person that you just want to be your friend. Karine, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you, and so excited that we connected. And I'm just, this show is really about helping folks who particularly live abroad. Maybe they move to a new country, they're changing jobs, they're in between careers, they're transitioning, they have some type of big life transition happening. And the challenge is, how does one redefine personal and professional success? And that's kind of the context of, this is the ongoing question that I help my listeners answer. And so with your story and with your journey as an entrepreneur, can you kind of give us an idea of the different types of things that you've done in your life to get to where you are today, to get to, being the crew coach and living the life that you're living?
Sure. Thank you so much, firstly, for having me here. I've been listening to your podcasts and they're so inspiring, and you have such a beautiful voice. It's so soothing and calming.
Thank you. My friend said, Dom, you have a podcast voice. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So my journey, it's quite a long one, but I'm going to try and make it short. So I grew up in South Africa, and in a place called Durban, and it's almost like that white picket fence lifestyle. And most of my friends are married with children. I'm not married, don't have any children yet. And I felt like there was something more to life than just that. And I did want to go overseas and experience whatever it is that I was destined for. I immigrated to Australia after finishing my undergrad in psychology and organizational psychology. I have an obsession around human behavior. I absolutely love it. I find it so interesting why we do the things that we do. And I knew deep down that I was going to do something with it at some point. So immigrated to Australia with only $2,000 in my bank account. And I refused to ask my parents for a cent. I'm like, I'm going to do this on my own. And the exchange rate was quite significant. Maybe it was 8-1 or something like that. And when I saw the price of food, I think there was a drought in Australia and bananas or cucumbers were really expensive, and I converted it. So I'm like, 50 rand for a cucumber. I'm like, I'm not going to pay for that. And I think I was like living off $30 a week. I don't know how I did it. And I would walk for kilometers and kilometers because I didn't want to pay $3.50 for the bus. I was very conservative. I got a job working at a university, the University of Notre Dame, and I think they've got a few all over the world. And I was a PA to the executive director. And it was very exciting for me. It was my first professional job. I think it was earning about $500 a week, which doesn't seem like a lot at all at the time. So I'm a bit confused by that. But anyway, it was a step into the door of my new realm of the professional world. Probably about 8 months in, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm just shuffling paper. I'm not making an impact. I don't feel like I'm in alignment with what I'm supposed to do. I want to make a difference in other people's lives. And I think that's so important to recognize when you don't feel any joy in your life, that it's an opportunity to take a step back and reflect on what's not working so that you can make it work for yourself. And I don't know how I found this position, but I ended up working as a kindergarten teacher in a Montessori school. And I was so happy because I thought that's what I wanted. I wanted to work with children in the future in more of a counseling space. That job was so stressful. I had mostly boys in my class and they're jumping all over the place, and the way you discipline in a Montessori school is very different. You've got to go, stop, I don't like it. So very passive. And I don't believe you should scream at your kids or anything like that. But it did tested my patience, and it made me very ill, I would say. I was really sick from the stress. And I read an amazing book during that time called Ask and It's Given. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh my gosh, that's yes, I have. I think I've read it. It's
Is it
by
is it Seth?
no.
No, it's not Seth. Oh, name.
It's tip of the
Oh,
yes.
Hicks,
Right. Oh my
yes.
gosh. Okay, I'm totally reading that book. I'm reading that book right now.
No.
It's
Oh
on my
my
Kindle.
word.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I tell you what, that book's phenomenal. I read it. I did all the exercises. I asked for a new car. I didn't have a car, so I just asked for a car. I got a new car. And I asked for a job that was walking distance from my house so that I was living in Sydney, Australia at the time, so I could run on Bondi Beach in the mornings before work. I asked for $1,000 a week. I got everything that I asked for. I got the new car, didn't have to pay for it. Like, it was just insane.
How did you get the new
And
car?
the new car was through the new job that I got. So I transitioned
Oh my
out of that.
gosh, so amazing.
Yeah, I transitioned out of that, and then I started working for a very wealthy family in Darling Point on the same street as Nicole Kidman. And they had a special needs son who was 6 years of age. And then I looked after their 3-year-old as well. And I would fly around the country with the children to the holiday homes, etc. And I think it was a really good opportunity for me to have exposure to a child with autism, to feel whether or sense whether this was my pathway. Um, I was working 10 hours a day, and again, very stressful, like a huge amount of responsibility. I was only 24 years of age. And I went home to South Africa probably a year later for a holiday. And everyone was talking about the super yachts. And I knew I had a desire to travel around the world, but not to return to my home country with no money.
Mhm.
So I was listening about the super yacht industry, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. You can earn a really good salary, don't have to pay for rent or for food. I think it's changed now, but we didn't have to pay for tax, or like, it was great. It was perfect. I'm like, yes, I want to do this. And so I didn't want to go. I was having such a good time in Cape Town, South Africa. I wasn't quite ready to go back to my nanny job. And less than 24 hours of flying back to Australia, I get a message saying, if you're having a good time, stay. They were going through a separation. And I did, and I did my course, my SDCW 95, firefighting and life-saving course. And I was asked by my uni friends if I wanted to join them on a canyoning trip. So you would hike in the mountains and then jump into pools of water. I got to my third jump and I looked down, it was 3 stories. And I thought, oh, that's a bit steep. I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. And I was like, you can't turn back. And there was probably 26 guys and 3 of us girls. And one of the girls jumped in before me. So I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. So I'm just going to do it. And then the boys did a countdown for me. So I just did a run and a jump over off the cliff. I shattered my pelvis and broke my L5 vertebra. I thought I was just winded. So somehow I managed to swim to the shore. I got up. I couldn't move my back at all. And they were like, we have to call the helicopter to come pick you up. And I didn't travel with any travel insurance because I was going back to home to South Africa. I didn't think that I would need it. And they said it was going to cost $80,000 to get picked up by the helicopter. And I was like, it's okay. I'll lie here for a bit and then I'll walk later this afternoon. They're like, you can't walk and we can't carry you. Yeah. So helicopter came to pick me up, and I got attached to the stretcher bed, airlifted out. The bed was outside of the helicopter. I must say the view was spectacular. and
God.
the paramedic was just as gorgeous. It wasn't such a bad experience after all. And I ended up going to a public hospital that was completely dilapidated. And they told me that I needed to watch out for my mobile phone because they steal babies at this hospital. It was a nightmare. It was such a horrific experience. And the doctors were newly graduated out of their course. And I got discharged the next day, and the doctor told me, you're fine, just don't go for a run or anything like that. I'm like, a run? I can't walk. I don't know what you're talking about. I had to have a pan to urinate in. Like, it was terrible. And then I saw a specialist, and he was like, oh my gosh, how are you walking? Your L5 vertebra is severed. There's like a gap through your spine. And then I ended up flying to Australia when it was safe to do so. 6 weeks later, I was on a yacht in Italy. I managed to line up a position through a friend in South Africa, got on a yacht. I worked on a 72 meter, 60 and a 48 meter. I was in Maldives for 6 months, traveled all through the Mediterranean, and it was a completely different lifestyle that no one could even imagine. It was insane.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and again, when you talk about finding your career purpose and your why, that was great for me right then. And I think it's so important to trust the process that you're on. But that niggling feeling came back. I was hoovering the main salon, dusting the same thing that I dusted, an hour before, because it has to be absolutely spick and span. You detail with an earbud and a toothpick. That's the level of cleaning that you do. And one of the guests, he was on a jet ski and he smashed through a marine reserve, like damaged the coral, and then just stumbled onto the beach. And the security guards picked him up and said, what are you doing? This is like a marine reserve. And he's like, don't worry, the boat will pay for it. So no care in the world. It's just, bad money. And with that mentality that I can do anything that I want because I've got the money to do so. I can buy my way out of things. And there were prostitutes on board, and I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. I've got to save them. And it was just not in alignment with my values. And that's why I felt miserable and sad. I'm like, I can't do this if it doesn't serve what I wanted to do, the bigger vision I had for myself. Then why am I wasting my time being here? And there's a lot of crew politics, conflict happening on board. And I was in the middle of a lot of it, meaning that the captain would come to me asking for advice. The girls would be crying with regards to feeling overwhelmed and stressed. And I loved helping them. And I was like, this feels amazing. And it confirmed to me that I needed to pursue a career helping people. And still, I wasn't quite clear on what that looked like, but I knew what the next step was. And that was to get off the yacht and study something else. And that's when I started studying my postgraduate in counseling. And then 2 years before finishing my degree, I took my placement very early, and they offered me a job working in a therapeutic jail. And I thought, are you kidding me? I was destined to work with children, help children. And now you're telling me that I need to do my placement in a jail. And it was very hard to come across these placements. So if you got offered one, the right thing to do is just to take it. And I thought, you know what, if I wanted to be the best therapist out there, I just as well do the hardest job and do something that scares me. And we were discussing previously, I read the book Marching Powder, and I did have that curiosity around, why are criminals criminals? Are they born that way? Or is it their lived experience? And I was like, maybe this is meant to be. Maybe this is my pathway. And so I embraced it. And I'm not going to lie to you, it was very challenging, but so worth it. So worth it. So many happy memories, and I've got no regrets doing so. And I think that's so important, that you listen to your gut and trust yourself on things that you may feel is a bit out of your comfort zone, because what is the worst thing that can actually happen? Yeah. So that's the start of it.
So you just like, so for everyone listening, Karine, she had told me a little bit of her story before, but like adding the whole thing about your breaking your back, and like, and you still say like, oh, this is such a nice view from up here. Like it's, you blow my mind. And I think it's kind of that sense of adventure and curiosity and willingness to reflect and to ask oneself, like, is this still aligned with what I want to do? I think you just exhibit so many qualities of someone that is open to learning and growing regardless of the experience. And I think that is such a great attitude and mindset to have, because you're right. Like sometimes we're gonna do things, we're gonna think that it's gonna feel one way, but then it ends up being completely opposite. But then having that mindset of, I'm just gonna trust the process. And I think it's so there's so many nuggets in there, everyone listening. So if you like rewind this podcast, listen to those few bits again, and just listen to the way that she is exemplifying risk taking, bravery, action despite fear. Like these are all the things and the qualities that you need in order to move to the next stage of your life.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I think another one is, the big one that helped me is turning failure into fun. So I went for an interview to work in another prison, because the current prison I was working in was an hour and a half away from home. And it was so taxing. The job was so taxing. The prisoners were very needy, hardly had time to even drink water or eat my lunch. And I think being new to it, it was overwhelming. I remember when my first couple of weeks returning home, I was a mute because I was processing the stories that I heard, and they were so intense, and you've got to be switched on all the time, like actively listening. Then when you're teaching, thinking what you're going to say next, but incorporating their experience and linking it up to the theory that you're teaching. So your mind is continuously active. And it really, I was burnt out a few occasions in my career working in the industry. So I think what was going to help me was to find a job closer to home. And it was probably only a 20-minute drive from the city. So it would have been a very wanted position and hard to come by. And you know what, I thought, I don't think I'm going to get the job, but let me just have fun and let me just try. Because again, what's the worst that's going to happen? This is good practice for me. So when the right job comes up, then I'll have more confidence around interviews. So prepared for my interview and studied the theory and what I should say. And yeah, I was like brainstorming. They give you the sheet of paper, the questions, and you got 10 minutes to brainstorm. And I'm like, yep, I've got this. I know what I'm going to do. The next thing, they said, well, now we want to talk to you about motivational interviewing and how you would get a resistant prisoner to your program. I was like, yep, sure. So now I've got my brainstorm happening in my mind and what I'm going to say. The next thing, this huge guy walks into the room, and I've got a panel. There's my potential boss, there's a prison officer, and then there's like the director of the prison. It was so as intimidating as it was, but this huge man walked in the room, and he had big thighs, probably came up to my chest, tats everywhere, and he sat down opposite me in the chair, and he said to me, I don't want to effing go to your program. It's a piece of shit. And I was like, what? Excuse me? And so I had to convince this person to do the program. That was the task that they set me. But he gave me such a hard time. And I was like, halfway through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've actually brought a real prisoner into the room. I'm like, this is really full on. And by the end of it, I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going to get this job. So I just let go and had a good laugh, and just became myself, which I think is so important. And I ended up getting the job, and I I really didn't think I was going to. And I told the guy at the end, still not knowing if he was a prisoner or what, but he was actually an office guard. And I said, you made that really hard for me. And we had a bit of a chuckle around it. But yeah, I think it's so important to be yourself and turn your perception of failure into fun, because that's what failure is for. It's your stepping stone to success. And why not have fun along the way?
I love that. I love that. It's reframing this idea that failing is bad to no, failing is something you do when you want to be successful.
Yeah.
It's so good because as a high achiever, like I never thought failure was a good thing. I had to really flip that narrative in my mind to actually do this work, to become an entrepreneur and to change into something different than who I was before. Oh my gosh, I'm sure you have like loads and loads of stories, and we could like keep going. So I wanna transition real quick into how you made that decision going from your job within the jails to
Yeah.
to becoming your own, to doing your own business. Like, what was your process? How did you kind of get to that point and decide, all right, I'm gonna have my own business. I'm gonna become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think that a lot of it comes down to intuition. And I'm one to believe in the law of attraction in the universe. So, being a high achiever, I'm continuously doing, and going and going. And I heard this little voice saying, Karine, you need to slow down. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it later. I'm just busy right now, but I hear you. I'll come back to you. And so I was on my merry way down to the beach on a Sunday to meet a friend for a walk on my scooter, because I had a car and a scooter. Scooters are really efficient. So you don't have to worry about parking, can get there quick, go through the traffic. And I'm going to be very honest with the listeners, but I saw a cute guy, and I didn't tell you this, Dom. I saw a cute guy and I was like, oh, not bad. And then the next thought I had was, oh, maybe slow down a little bit. It was drizzling. I was going about 40 kilometers an hour. The next thing, I lost control of the bike, and it spun out of control, and it was all slow motion. I feel like I was like dragged along the road for a bit. And I remember the bus being a couple of cars behind me and thinking, oh my word, is this bus going to go over my head? Or, what is going to happen? And then the entire scooter fell on my tiny ankle and shattered it into lots of pieces. And that cute guy came to pick me up, and he was holding me under my armpits, but he was in shock and he didn't know what to do. He couldn't move. Yeah. And I had to direct him. I'm like, right, leave me standing here, get the bike out of the way. And then I put it down on the road. And Bondi is known to be quite boho and hippie. And I remember this lady saying to me, now just visualize your happy place. And I thought, oh my God, are you kidding me? I think my ankle's hanging off my foot. I was thinking about my happy place. So anyway, I got picked up by the ambulance, had a great time in there. I was on morphine. We had a good laugh. And then I got into hospital, and I saw some of the office guards from work and some of the prisoners. And I think I just felt so overwhelmed. I burst into tears. That the surgeon said to me that I would be housebound for 6 weeks. And that was probably the worst news I could possibly hear, because I loved my job so much. Yeah. But that gave me an opportunity to pause. And that was the universe telling me to slow down. And they're like, if you're not going to listen to us, we're going to make you slow down for you. And that's when I studied a business degree. And I was like, okay, how can I serve more people? Because working in the justice system, depending who's in government at the time, the budget's the first to go, and it wasn't aligning with my values. I value justice, and I wasn't seeing it. And it was burning me out. It was making me really disheartened with the system. And I thought about my skill set, and I thought about the gaps in the market of where I could use my skill set to close that. And it was yachting. And I did some research around it, and ended up, there was one main competitor, and that was the Crew Coach. I ended up going, while I was studying my business degree, I got offered a job in a Melbourne prison, and I didn't think I was going to get it. It was like my dream job. And my intuition told me, if you get it, you're packing your things and you're moving. And I've been living in Sydney for 12 years, the best home, the best friends, best lifestyle, everything. But my intuition said, you need to go. And I got the job, packed up my things and left, uprooted and left. And then I'd been in Melbourne for about 6 months, submitted my last assignment at the airport, and went over to Europe for my grandmother's 80th birthday. And I was going to also make it a business trip and meet the competitor of, who my competitor was, the crew coach. Sent her a Facebook message, and she was like, oh, hi, hun. Sorry, I don't live in France anymore. Although I was there for 17 years, I live in Melbourne. And I'm like, what? I just left Melbourne to go all the way to France to meet this woman.
Yeah.
And so my intuition told me, when you get back to Melbourne, you've got to call her. Then I heard the inner critic come in and go, but what are you going to say to her? You've got nothing to say. Yeah. And I trusted myself. I was like, it doesn't matter. Just see where the conversation leads you. Yeah. Called her. She was like, do you want to work for me? Like, do you want to teach or train crew and be based in Europe? And I thought about it, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted, because I wanted to build my own business rather than working for someone else. It just didn't seem right. Mm-hmm. The next phone call I got from her was, would you like the business? You've got 2 days to decide. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've just moved to Melbourne. That's a huge financial responsibility. But anyway, I went with it. And then I moved to Perth to be with family while I got myself set up. And the business is thriving.
Oh my God.
Like, I think it's made 400% profit in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like, and I love that you talk about your intuition and going with that inner voice that's telling you and nudging you and asking you, like, you need to go do this, you need to go do this. Because I think oftentimes with our logical brain, we're going to think, I need to do the safe thing, or I need to do the thing that, like, I know what's going to happen next. But doing the thing that you don't know what's going to happen next, or like following that guidance, is so valuable. And I think that following the feeling, following the curiosity is what will get you to new heights. Like, that's exactly how you're saying. That's what's brought me here, is the intuition, the voice, the higher calling. Like, what else can you do, Dom? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I love that you share that, because at the end of the day, listen to your own voice.
Yeah.
The positive, not the inner critic, but the voice that's challenging you to dig deeper and to ask yourself, what would this look like? What would this other kind of life look like?
And it takes practice. And I don't want to say, just follow your intuition, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners thinking, but how? I don't understand. Like, what's the difference between the inner critic and the intuition? And it's too overwhelming. I don't get it. But just, it's a slow process. It's your third brain, I believe, because you've got your brain, you've got your heart and your gut, and that's your third brain. And my biggest tip is to focus on the feeling, because positive feelings have a higher vibration. And so right now, while I'm talking to you, literally my vibration is through the roof, because I'm so happy and so excited, and it's stuff that I love talking about, and it just feels so right. So just connect to the feeling. Yeah.
So good. Oh my gosh, I can keep talking, but we're coming down to our time here. So if there is one thing that you could tell the listeners in terms of, stepping into that next level, stepping into the unknown, stepping into what is exciting, what advice would you give them?
Good question. I would say trusting yourself, I think, is so important. And asking yourself, where is this self-doubt coming from? If you are a bit scared to make that move,
Yeah.
because so often we can hook ourselves on our family scripts, for example, and they don't serve us. They're not our own. And it's about carving your own pathway because you're deserving of that. Life is short. Do the things that bring you joy. Don't let the fear hold you back.
I'm like, keep going. No, because it's like those simple things, right? Like be yourself. Be yourself. Like that is such a basic thing, but it's so hard to be ourselves when we're not being true to ourselves. Life is short, do the things that bring you joy, do the things that make you feel like positive. And I mean, that is yes, yes, and yes to all of those. And last question, how do you define success?
How do I define success? It's doing the things that I love, to be honest. I asked a client this the other day, and one of his responses was money, and I can't remember the second one, but my belief system around success and money is do what you love and the money will come. Yeah. And that's how it's worked out for me. It's not worth, I feel like you'll lose your dream if you just pursue the big dollar signs. Yeah. Because it's about the why behind what you're doing.
So good. All right. So how do listeners get in touch with you? Social media, websites, like how can they learn more about you and connect with you?
So I'm very active on Instagram, and that's with _crew_coach. And then on Facebook, the website's pretty easy, www.thecrewcoach.com. I think that's about it. That's where I hang out.
Awesome. Okay, everyone, anyone listening, if you've learned anything or you've been inspired in any way, or if you laughed at any moment of her storytelling, send her a DM on Instagram or connect with her on Facebook. Just connect. This is what this show is for. Inspiring you all to lead positive, successful lives. Do the things that bring you joy, do the things that light you up, and connect with awesome people. That is life. Connect, and make stuff happen. Make it happen. Make shit happen.
It's just based on how we connected, like just that final point there. Yeah. It's so important to, reach out. If your intuition's saying, there's something about this person, I need to connect with them, just go and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hands down. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to seeing what other good, awesome things you'll be doing in the world.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.